you're not smart enough to know everything. Some of these topics are really tough. We struggle with them currently, and if we struggle with them long enough, one day we'll be smart enough.
Hi, welcome to the Smart Enough podcast. I'm your host, Vandy.
And I'm Danny. And on the ones and twos, we have AJ.
That's right.
The main man.
We are a weekly podcast designed to engage and inspire deep and critical thinkers to participate in constructive conversation and to bring a little more compassion and hopefully a few laughs to public discourse. And while we may not be smart enough to know everything,
We are smart enough to have a conversation.
today on the show, we got it. Let's just celebrate that for a second. We got it. We got it, y'all.
We've been practicing for a while.
For today's show, we have Brian Jordan Alvarez, the creator, writer, and director of The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo.
Get out of here.
Uh-huh. Yes. Danielle's new to the show. I kind of hide a few facts and figures from her just because your surprise reactions are
Yeah, no, I
so
remember when
great.
it was coming out, and this is when I was working with him.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like super into the show, and I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. And then he goes, "Oh, I have to go get them lunch." And I was like, "What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
we're at work. What do you mean you have to go get them lunch?"
I mean, Danielle, don't
It was
say
cool.
that.
It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah. So today our topic is reality versus representation, or representation versus reality. It's kind of when I was kind of going through the topic, I realized, we're basically asking, does life imitate art, or does art imitate life?
Mm,
You know, that's a question.
that's a good
And
one.
when I was digging, I was finding all this great stuff about it. But I think the reason why I felt like it was relevant now is because the media is really getting into trouble and calling its legitimacy as being called into question, right?
Mhm.
Like, does it represent reality or not?
Mhm.
And it's a couple of things. And I think recently I've realized that this is kind of a universal truth, which is we get very angry when what is on the screen does not represent our reality.
Yeah.
So, like, whether it be stereotype, if it's a stereotype of like a gay person, or I just keep seeing the same narrative about gay people or black people, then we get very
Muslims, yeah.
or Muslims or whoever it is, then we get very upset. And I've realized, and this goes back to Goldfish and Grandma and all that kind of stuff, which you'll have to watch an earlier episode to truly understand that reference. But I think Trump supporters feel the same way. They're like, that's not my reality.
Mhm.
Like, that doesn't represent my reality. And then it calls into question, like, is your reality reality? I'm getting super deep
Yeah,
here.
you're getting pretty deep. No, I think that there's a difference between, like, with government, us saying that this does not represent our reality. But if I watch Bad Girls Club and I see them going crazy, I'm not concerned. I'm not bothered by the fact that that's not my reality. Like, I can enjoy that. But government was designed to represent us. And so that's where you get upset, is because what you were designed to do, you're no longer doing, and you're continuing to make these laws and these policies that do not, fulfill the goal that they were supposed to fulfill in the first place. So I think that's where the frustration comes from, because that ultimately affects us, right? Versus whatever reality TV show.
I'm also talking about the representation. Like, I think Trump supporters are like, I'm not racist, and you guys keep talking about me like I'm a racist. And even if the facts point to that, you know what I mean? Like, they get very upset about that.
Because it's an attack on their character, and if they don't see themselves that way, there's just that frustration. And I think also racism has to be redefined. Like, I think that a lot of people think, oh, racism means you don't like me because of the way that I look. But more so, racism is you saying, oh, that's your reality. I don't have to deal with it. I'm going to stay in my bubble.
Right.
You know, and so if they don't understand that definition, then yeah, of course, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
You know, like
I totally agree. I think when
I have black friends, I
Right,
have Muslim
right,
friends. Like,
right.
yeah, but that's not the problem.
Right.
The problem is that, you know.
Right. I think when most people hear the accusation of being called a racist, they're like, I'm not in the KKK. Like, I think that's what they jump to. They think of the extreme and they don't realize that it's like, if you're not actively trying to disassemble the, you know, white power or white privilege, then you are actively kind of contributing to this. We went straight we went straight to the topic here. Brian's like freaking out. He's like, oh my God, like I'm going to have to talk about all of these things. But really, I guess how do we fix this? Like, you know, how do we represent, and really what I think it is representing everybody's reality on these platforms, you know, in some sense, and like bringing everybody's voice to the table. And I think many news organizations try to do that with a panel. I think you have some news organizations who do, unfortunately, cater to the reality of their viewers. And they're like, oh, we won't show you reality, but we'll show you your reality, in the sense of like, we'll mirror back to you what it is that you want to see. And I think a lot of news programs do that. But what
yeah, it's about the money. I think that they show their the viewers that are paying or whatever's going to make them money is what they're going to show. And so if showing reality or showing how their establishment is in fact perpetuating some of the disparities that we see, then yeah, they're not going to show that. Right?
Right. And so I really think that diversity is the key. I mean, feels like such a kumbaya answer, but like I really think that
diversity and I think in combination with compassion and understanding that there are going to be things that you could have been raised thinking a certain way for all people, right? For all sides of all walks of life, but that you've been brought up thinking a certain way, and it's okay if over time you learn like this is not necessarily the case, or I don't have to be. And like I guess this sounds really abstract, but if you were raised all your life to think that as a black person, every time you saw a white person, they had no genuine intent to be in a relationship with you. Like they didn't care. They were never going to treat you right. If you spend the rest of your life thinking that, you know, like you're going to you could potentially experience that more.
Well, that's how you first felt with me.
Well, and then I changed, and now here we are.
You were first very skeptical. You were like, this white bitch. he better cut the
Absolutely not. Whatever. So, but I think that over time you have to realize, like, no, all white people aren't the same, right? And yes, there are still those typical, you know, like the stereotype that we know, those people still exist very much. But then there are also people that are willing to acknowledge, like, oh, this is how historically we have oppressed this group of people.
Yeah.
Or this is how we have, you know, and so in my personal life, I'm going to take steps to, you know.
But, and here's what I'll say to that, because when we were talking about the depths of pain and like all of that, I think that as a black person, as a gay person, you do realize like, you are aware of like, oh, if I'm being discriminated against, then how am I discriminating against other people? I don't think a lot of white people ever have that experience, so they never learn to, like that's great of you to be like, hey, I should learn to not think all white people are like this, but I don't know if a white person, I mean, I'm gay, so it's like a little different, but like, I mean, I'm still white, so
yeah. You still have some privilege.
No, I definitely have privilege.
No, yeah.
But I just mean like to recognize that kind of, to take that step and be like, oh, I may inherently be doing this and like thinking about this about other people.
Really quick, we were talking about this the other day. It's just like what empathy is, and someone's ability to have empathy is probably proportionate to their experience. And if you've never had to go through these hardships, then the likelihood of you empathizing with someone else is going to be very hard. So I think it has to do, and not to say that white people don't have hard, like just like Ian, he was saying, not being being raised in a poor home, will probably help you empathize with other people that also don't have, so just,
Yeah. So get ready, Brian. You're about to dive
Yeah,
into this
Brian.
hot, steaming mess that we've just made. We will be
Absolutely.
right back. And welcome back, Brian. We have Brian Jordan
hi.
Alvarez with us. Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm great. What were we just talking about? Obsessions.
Upset, but we're gonna do that at the end.
Oh, right.
But I was
right.
just explaining the rules to you, so that
Right,
you weren't like
right.
totally blindsided and like, because I want you to have like a pure, true obsession at the end. Anyways, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So Brian is the creator, writer, and director of The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo.
Oh, yeah.
It is a hit YouTube show.
Yeah.
And it's won a bunch of awards for like best web series of the year
On
and
IndieWire, yeah.
on IndieWire and a bunch of other, and it's up
Got
for more
nominated for a
awards.
Gotham Award, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're going to the Queerties tomorrow. I think this is the first year they're having the Queerties, which I think
Really?
is just like it's a fun thing. It's just a fun thing. Like, I don't care if I win. Like,
Right.
it just doesn't matter to me.
Secretly, you're like,
yeah,
"Ah, God, I want it."
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring you on for. I feel like you're about to say something else?
No.
No.
I'm like checking in with my breath.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
here. Yeah.
I thought you were perfect for this because I really feel like the show, and I know we talked about this earlier, how you're like, everyone always tells me there's all these meanings in my show that I totally
Don't even know we're there.
don't even know are there.
Yeah.
But something I love about the show is that, in relation to representation and reality, it kind of defies reality
Sure.
in a sense.
Sure.
Like, it acknowledges that racism and homophobia exist, but it doesn't really treat them as serious
Problems.
oppressive forces.
Sure.
It treats them as like silly and like something
Yeah.
to laugh at.
Right.
Was that intentional on your part? Or?
Yeah, I think there's this thing where when you move to the city, I just know that my parents, I remember, and other people's parents, there's this argument or this feeling that they, have every right to have, which is that we just don't want life to be hard for you, and we know that it's harder to be gay than it is to be straight, right? But when you live in a city, it's not.
Right.
Like, it's not harder to be gay. Like, I've really lost sight of rampant homophobia in a way, or just like I just visited home recently for a while, and you feel it there, and even my body, like my sense memory of growing up there, and I loved growing up there for a lot of reasons in Tennessee, like in the sticks of Tennessee, but it's like, oh yeah, homophobia is here, and I've lived in LA now for 12 years, and it's just like, I'm just like gonna make out with my boyfriend at a restaurant, and like if somebody, like, who's gonna like say, like, if somebody says faggot to me, like, it's like funny, like you can like gang up with everybody else at the restaurant and like be like, you're a faggot to like that person.
Yeah, right.
Who said that. Just like it's very clear and true that most people in the city are not at least overtly homophobic, and beyond that, it's, I mean, we're very lucky, I think, and I don't want to say anything too controversial, but in a way, I think it's very fun. I don't want to say anything too controversial.
and then you're gonna go.
It's for me, for one, it is fun to be gay. I'm glad that I'm gay. There are memes that say that, like, if I have a son, I hope he's gay because it's great being gay. But it's also, we live in a time where if you're with the right people and with people that are of a good mind, it's cool to be gay. Like, it's a cool thing, you know? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like the web series in general, and you've said this before, you're like, yeah, it's almost like an It Gets Better, like, world.
Yeah, it's like it got better. Here it is.
It's like, okay, everything's been
It's better
solved.
now, yeah.
There are some things in the show, like the characters still struggle with monogamy versus polygamy.
Right, with
versus
relationships, the way that
with relationships.
straight people do. Yeah.
Well, the way in which any human does.
Right,
is like
exactly.
Struggling with a
The way even
relationship.
dogs do,
Yeah.
or chickens. The way furniture does with other furniture.
When we leave it alone, when we walk out of the house, the
Yeah.
chair's secretly arguing with the sofa.
Yeah.
And then the other way, and this is like more from a production standpoint, in which I feel like you've defied reality, is like, I'm sure, because it's a 30-minute web show on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, 20. Yeah.
20.
It feels like 30.
Did people ever tell you like nobody's gonna watch a 20-minute?
Nobody ever told me anything because I never asked anybody anything.
Really?
Which is part of the trick. It's how I am creative, and I hold on to that pretty aggressively. And once the product is out, nobody remembers that part when I was having to make sure that nobody touched it before it landed out. Because I'm kind of speaking directly to an audience in a way. In my experience, I have this just visceral thing that I want to make and stuff that I want to say. And it really is, not too egotistically, because I think it's coming from all kinds of places, and it's definitely coming from the people that I'm working with more than anything. But I need it to get directly to them. I need it because if it gets improved along the way or kind of cleaned up, it won't have those special things that you're talking about. You know, they would say, well, why don't they have any problems with homophobia, or why is it so long, or all of this stuff. And it's like, well, that's everything that would get watered down about it, I think, is the point of it. You know, you're coming up against my I think a lot about the show creatively. So,
well, I would hope so.
Yeah. Honestly, I think about it a lot. Yeah. But yeah, no, nobody ever did. I think that was always the trick of it, and I think my cast, definitely the cast, they're all geniuses, and they got it. I had made one long show before, so they knew what I was doing. Right.
Well, and Danielle, feel free to jump in whenever, but you really had diversity at the helm. You know what I mean? Like, you had such.
I wish there was more. Yeah.
You wish there. Well. I mean, we always wish there was more. Like, sure. I'm like, there's so many different types of people we haven't had on the show yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I was talking earlier about, like, you know, representation in the media, and really, I think, you know, we talk about casting kind of like solving some things, but really, in order to get different people's perspectives out there, it's about employing people behind the camera who are different, who can share different perspectives. Because you can cast a gay person in a show, and you can cast like different races in a movie.
Yeah.
But if the person who's creating the message isn't of that same ilk, then it's not going to be a true to form message, an authentic message from that person.
Right.
I think it's very interesting because just to plug Fences or August Wilson, I think the reason that was so powerful is because there was this man writing this play about how a woman feels in this strained relationship, and he's not a woman, you know, and it was and it connected with us as women. So I think it's probably possible, but I think the go-to is to have those people behind the camera, have the diversity behind the camera writing the films to make sure that does get out.
Yeah. Well, and I remember learning in communication school. I mentioned communication school a lot, Brian, and viewers at home should be taking shots at this point. That's a rule we've established.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone always talks about casting in front of the camera and the statistics about that, but the statistics for behind the camera are actually even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for females behind the camera, for, you know, different races and gay. I don't know if they measure gay people. We didn't learn about that, but for race and for gender, it's definitely underrepresented.
Yeah, I think about that.
Yeah.
The patriarchy, basically. Yeah, and
that.
And the patriarchy, like, the racial I guess it's not called the patriarchy, but it's like, the idea that the straight white man has the most power and is. It's funny because I make this show, right? And I'm white and male, you know? Yeah.
Kind of
And
what
so I
was
try to
talking
put
about earlier.
people, you know, I want the show to essentially raise up oppressed people. And since the show is a sort of utopia, we can kind of all have fun and kind of present this world where we really do all love and accept each other, which I think is the goal ultimately, you know?
Well, and almost like kind of what we were talking about earlier, like, and what I think you're mentioning is like, thank God we're gay.
Right.
Because we understand oppression and we understand discrimination, even though it's in a different way. I'm not trying to, because people
but
always
it's-
make the comparison
yeah,
of,
yeah.
you know, whatever. And I'm not making that comparison at all. But it is what you were saying, Danielle, about like, you can be more empathetic as a person if you've experienced something yourself.
Right.
And so another benefit of being gay is you kind of can look around and be like, you know, I've been oppressed in this way, and like I'm gonna lift other people up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting because what you're saying is about the people that appear, like it's actors, they're having an easier time in the industry diversifying or having more diversity in acting. But the problem is still huge behind the camera. And as someone who making this show is in a way behind the camera, it's like how do I improve that? Because that's where I really feel the patriarchy is in the fact that I'm moving toward as much success as I can get. And it's as easy for me as it is and as hard for me as it is. And in my experience, it's hard. I want it to be easier, right?
Right.
But then
We
if
all
there's somebody
do.
for whom it's even harder, I'm not looking at them going, "Oh, let me not make my show
Right.
and let me champion you to make your show." And I actually am trying to analyze that and do that in whatever ways that I can. I have Stephanie. I mean, I don't want to. Stephanie's a genius, right?
Oh yeah.
But she made her own show, and it's coming out soon, and it's a masterpiece. And I can just see her. Or I don't want to. I can see her, and she talks to me about it sometimes. Just like there just is a certain. It's just different. It's
There's
just like a
things she has-
scarier thing for her to
Yeah.
put it out there. Just because she's not this, and in the same way where it's scarier for me than it would be for a truly straight white man or a truly hot straight white man or just like, or a rich hot straight white man, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't know.
Well,
Anyway,
and-
I don't know how to, but
Well, there's
yeah.
things she has to worry about that you don't.
Right.
And like I remember there was one time where, you know, Periscope. Do you guys know Periscope? It's like that app where you can film.
Yeah. And then it
like,
turned into Facebook Live,
Yeah.
basically.
And so normally I would just go on as a white straight or a white straight man.
Oh my God, you were on Periscope
I
as a
know,
white straight man?
Yeah, I would suddenly convert and not be gay anymore. No, but I would be I was a male, and you know, people would say there would be some mean people, but mostly it was like a lot of positive feedback. Then one time I made a Periscope with my girlfriend at the beach and got all this attention.
Right.
Because
She's hot.
I said with my girlfriend at the beach, just like
Because she's hot. Yeah, I remember her. Yeah.
and and we got all these trolls like saying like take off your shirt, like just like this huge negative that I had never experienced before.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Wait, they said take off your shirt?
Take off your shirt and just kind of all these like obscenely sexual and oftentimes
yeah, it's also
degrading
embedded.
things.
Yeah, I mean, all the
Yeah.
oppression is it's so embedded into like the very fiber of. It's like, of course, people are like, I'm not racist because they have no idea they're doing it because they just think that they are. I don't know, like Danielle Watts, who was in episode 4, who's amazing in that, was like arrested and had all this drama around having sex. Do you remember the story? She had like sex, or she was accused of having sex in her car with her white boyfriend, and then people were immediately
that was
calling her a
her?
prostitute. And yeah, and it turned into this media firestorm, and then people were
my
saying that she
God.
was pulling the race card. But it's like, yeah, but also the race card is real. Like also,
It's being played.
yeah, it's like,
Right.
I don't know.
It's like you're not allowed to call out the oppression that you're experiencing.
Right, and that's a common thing in a lot of these discussions now that I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that was her.
It's like everyone's like, "Oh, I wish the oppressed people would just go back to being calm because everything was fine until you started screaming at me that I'm racist."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, we've just been dealing with your oppression, and now we're tired of dealing with it. And that seems to happen over and over. And it happened also in the gay rights movement. It's
yeah.
I mean, I keep just trying to think of how to just simply make work about oppressed people.
Yeah.
Freckles says if it's not POC or LGBT, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I mean, I definitely can empathize with that struggle in the sense of like not knowing where your role is in this bigger system as a white man. You know, like, well, what do I do? You know, and how am I supposed to change this? Because I'm also trying to
succeed,
advance myself.
Right.
I think it's the same thing in the Black community. You know, just like you know, I'm trying to pursue this profession or whatever, but I also see people that I went to high school with that are, you know, struggling. And then so it's just like, wait, so do I focus on what I need to do or, you know, and I think
or helping them.
Yeah. And so I think that we all deal with that
right
in general.
Or
right?
should I help white people feel like they're not racist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So no, that's a
That's
great,
a great out.
That's a great out. Let's help white people feel less racist. No, I'm just kidding. That is
Thanks,
not,
guys.
That is not the message. So now we're gonna move on to obsessions. Brian, this is where we can talk about something you are purely obsessed with. What a lot of people do is they'll say, I'm obsessed with this. I know it's stupid. I know it's kind of like dumb. And they kind of like question it. But I want it to be something that brings you pure joy.
Oh God.
Oh God. I can go either one of us can go first if you don't want to go first.
No, I'll just go.
Okay.
I'm I mean,
It's funny.
yeah.
he's a
Honestly, my close friend and I talk about it. I wouldn't. Well, yeah.
Don't
see,
question
it's
it.
Happening.
See,
yeah.
you do. You
right. Well,
you just have to say
yeah,
it.
I'm
It's hard.
obsessed with gay porn. You know.
Really?
I just can't believe. I just imagine being in 1800 and how rare it is to see sex, and now it's like at our fingertips. We have these incredible visuals of like the hottest sex you've ever seen, and it's like, and you can just enjoy that and masturbate, which is a healthy thing, and there it is. You know, it's great. It's just something that really brings me joy. Also,
Totally.
sex. You know, with my boyfriend.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
I would. I want to just get the full view of your face during that. Yeah. Do you have? What's your obsession, Danielle?
Quantico.
Quantico?
Oh,
The
yeah.
gas station?
No, the show.
No.
Oh.
Are you kidding me?
Is that a gas station? Am I making that up?
I think of Arco.
Oh, you're thinking of something. You might be right. Quantico.
There's some sort.
Texaco.
Okay, so it's a show. It's a show. I'm sorry. I don't mean.
It is
wanna
an
take away.
amazing show about these agents they're becoming FBI agents, but then there's like a flashback to when they were becoming agents and then now, and so they're trying to figure out who the terrorist is within the agents. And because I'm really a spy. And so
You are?
I am.
No.
Oh, she's
I
in.
am.
Oh my god. We've
I
lost
am.
her. We've lost her.
I
Last
am.
week she was like, I'm famous. Now she's like, I'm a spy. I think Danielle's like slowly losing it every week.
No, I really, if I didn't decide that, you know, medicine was something I really enjoyed, I probably would have gone into some type of spy.
It's not too late. I mean, now you.
It is.
Now you
There's
give
more opportunity for spying than ever.
yeah.
Today's America.
Yeah, today's America.
But it's a great show. I absolutely loved
But
it.
now you can't be a spy because you've just announced it to the world.
Yeah.
You know, like
Exactly.
like the jig is up.
The jig is up. The jig is up. I've let it go.
Wow. Does a spy never in their lifetime say I'm a spy?
Never.
They're always like, I'm not
I'm a
spy.
dentist. Yeah.
I'm a
They have
dentist.
to say other
Dentist.
things like insurance. That's what they say. They say like,
Insurance.
"Oh, I'm a deal broker,"
Mhm.
and people are
Wow.
just like, "Oh, that's boring. I don't want to hear any more about that."
Right. They're
Yeah.
like,
You know?
Shut up.
Or Papa Pope on Scandal. What was he?
I don't know.
He was the Pope.
No. You guys don't watch
I
Scandal?
don't watch Scandal.
Oh
I know.
gosh.
I know. I'm sorry, internet.
Oh
Don't
my
crucify me.
goodness. I
Um,
forgot what he was.
yeah.
Arch-
Anyway, so my obsession this week, it is I'm trying to be more and more specific with my obsessions.
Mm.
So my obsession this week is Jade Chenoweth. She's a dancer, and she dances a routine to "Love on the Brain" by Rihanna, and she absolutely kills it. It is the most like, she is someone who like knows where the camera is and does not let you forget that she's looking at you.
Yeah.
You're, you know, and like even when she's not looking at you, you feel her. You just feel her.
Must be love on the brain.
Must
It's
be
an
love on the
obsession.
brain, but it's an obsession. I mean, I could watch this girl. I think she's gonna be big. Like,
Oh yeah.
I do really.
Because she's a dancer.
She's a dancer, but she's like a performer. You know, like you feel her. You know, like a lot of dancers can be great backup dancers.
Yeah.
And like you can watch them and you're like, oh yeah, they're a great dancer, but you kind of you're focused on Britney or Madonna or whoever is in front. But she's like someone who
Commanding presence.
commanding presence. Anyway, so this is all the time we have for today. Brian, thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming
Thanks.
on the show today.
It was great.
Yeah, I hope that was all not too
Not-
controversial.
Well, I mean, I hope
That's
so too.
the idea.
I know. Well, and I always freak out. I always get stressed, and AJ has to talk me off the cliff because I'm like, we're going to
Off
be
the
so
cliff.
controversial. And he's like, that's the point. The point is not necessarily to be
Controversial.
It's to-
but it's to
it's-
discuss things that might be uncomfortable.
one and to bring like consciousness to these different kinds of feelings that we're having. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway, so you guys can always check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. I think we're gonna be moving all the videos to my other channel, so that
Oh.
because we've
Yeah.
anyway. So if you're on our first channel, then we're moving to a new channel. And you can also call if this really did get you thinking, like if it was controversial and you have something to say to
Please do.
question or critique us on. Yeah, AJ? Oh, I thought you were going to say something. You can call in at 323-642-7905. Once again, that's 323-642-7905.
Woo!
And remember, if we are smart enough to have a conversation,
So are you.
thanks so much, you guys. See you next week at Thursday.
Bye.